So this next section of videos is all about influencer strategy. We're going to start off by just talking about the methodology for how we think about influencers, and then we're going to go through specific potential channels you may want to leverage to target influencers to help scale and grow your Amazon brand. So this video is all about the foundation just to understand how we think about the strategy. So the purpose of this one is ultimately just to summarize the frameworks of using influencers to grow and build your success on Amazon. So regardless of the channel that you're looking at for influencers, there's some underlying characteristics of benefit that really exist throughout all of them. And it's what I like to call the power of influence. The biggest one is the fact that you've got embedded trust. So if you as a brand, especially an unknown brand that's primarily on the Amazon channel, creates an Instagram account or a YouTube account or whatever the case is, and you're posting content about the benefits of your products and your brand to your potential customer archetypes, there's always going to be a layer of uncertainty and untrust because you are a commercial entity. So unless you're like a really big, well-known brand that's established that trust and that community already, you're always going to have that issue with trust. Influencers are the opposite. Oftentimes, to grow to a level of success that they have, even if it's just at the micro or nano influencer level, they've built a significant amount of trust over time consistently with the folks that follow them, with their audience, with the people that trust their content. The other thing I would say is speed, right? For you to build this up and build a well-known, trusted brand, it takes years and a significant amount of investment in terms of both money and time. By tapping in directly to the influencer's already embedded system of trust and audience, you basically get speed, right? The other thing I think is fundamentally important is the rank signals that this traffic sends to Amazon for your listing and for your products. I'll get into specifically how this is tracked and leveraged, but suffice it to say that influencer-based links that come into Amazon carry a significant advantage for your listing and for your brand on the Amazon platform. The next is content. I think one of the most difficult things, especially as a smaller e-commerce business, one focused on Amazon especially, is it's difficult to get content because as Amazon sellers, we don't need as much ad creative as say a traditional D2C brand or even a big box brand does. We don't have the same level of content, photos, assets, lifestyle imagery of people using our products. By leveraging and tapping into influencers across different verticals and channels, you get access to a wide variety of photos, lifestyle photos, unboxings, video of your product in use. All of these things are tremendously valuable to integrate into your Amazon listing and broader brand strategy online. And if you were to go out and pay for this stuff from a professional, like most big brands have to do, it's incredibly expensive. So you kind of kill two birds with one stone in terms of getting all those other benefits, but you also get typically an asset that you can use in the future for that product and your brand. And then the final thing I would just say is leverage and scalability. This stuff is definitely work. Anybody that tells you it's not work is lying. It can actually be a bit of a pain in the ass to integrate some of these strategies. But the effort that comes out the other side over time can be incredibly scalable and can be super high leverage. So while it takes a while for the momentum to get going, to build up your fleet of influencers, to see what works, what doesn't, to see who's good and who's bad, and it takes that daily chipping away, weekly chipping away at it to build anything substantial, over time you get to a point, especially for future launches and future strategies, where you literally have this war chest of influencers that you can tap into to get content built, to do launches, to build promotions, to send traffic to help rank your product on Amazon. So there's absolutely a snowball effect where the momentum can take over, and it's incredibly scalable and high leverage over time. So this is just kind of a trend, right? Obviously, if you were to go back and launch a brand in 2012, 2013, this concept of influencers would be very difficult to tap into. But if you look at the Google Trends data just for this actual search term, you can see it's significantly spiked. And if you carried this actually now into 2021, 2022, you would see significant growth even more. The benefit too is that while this category has grown, it hasn't grown as much for Amazon sellers. Again, I keep coming back to this, but Amazon sellers are lazy. One of the benefits of Amazon is you tap into this embedded audience that Amazon's cultivated And so they're not usually that great at cultivating their own. And one of the strategies that you would use off of Amazon to build audience, to build scale, to build sales is to have an influencer network. So when you combine the two, you would combine these off Amazon skills on leveraging influencers with our on Amazon platform knowledge of how to be successful. It's an awesome combination that most sellers don't combine. This is another example of just the growth in terms of like beauty brands. If you want to look at like tip of the spear stuff, usually beauty is one of the big ones. You see what's happening in the beauty industry. It's usually happening 2-3 years in advance of when it's going to happen in the broader marketplace. So Estee Lauder has taken most of their marketing budget, in this case 75%, and dumped it into going digital, specifically with influencers. You can just see the estimated year-over-year growth in terms of the market size. Now we're into almost $10 billion plus as we crest into 2021. And then there's clearly just an abundance of strategy being used here, because unlike the old model where you had to go do a mass advertising campaign, programmatic advertising on TV, on major networks, on major radio stations, now you can literally tap into that trust and those eyeballs and that weaponization of commercial benefit from influencers very quickly and easily, whereas used to only be accessible to big brands. This is kind of just ROI, how you can think about ROI for influencers. You basically get the benefits above the top there, which is brand awareness, thought leadership. So you're actually going to grow and scale your own following and brand, especially if you focus on archetypes with your influencers that kind of command the same audience that you would like to tap into. You get leads and sales revenue. You get SEO benefit in our case to our Amazon listing. You get traffic, you get conversion. So all of those things above the line that obviously create value. And then there's also some benefits that you kind of either negate or scale some costs. So you don't have the same cost of content production. You can kill two birds with one stone. You don't have to go externally find those vendors to make content. The strategy around your brand and ideas, oftentimes influencers have a lot of amazing ideas that you wouldn't have otherwise thought of. And I've seen that firsthand with a number of influencers I've worked with that have come up with really novel campaigns that align well with their audience. Then you get this content distribution, advertising, and all these other elements that really kind of snowball to help create an ROI benefit for these strategies. In the Amazon context, how we can basically think about this, especially if we're giving the product to an influencer to leverage and then maybe paying them a fee on top of that, is we've got the cost of our product. So let's say our product from China costs $10. Let's say our Amazon fees are another $9, so we're like $19 there. And let's say that we pay the influencer $100. So for $119 in this case to give an influencer product to create content and share it, we get all these benefits below. So we get cost of photos, video, etc., which might cost $1,000. We get the additional leads, followers, emails, eyeballs on our brand that we would have otherwise had to pay for with advertising. And then ultimately, some of these folks are obviously going to purchase the product that they see this influencer share, which we're going to pocket those profits. And or it's also going to instigate and improve our organic rank on Amazon, which is also going to generate more value for us. So this is the equation from an Amazon context on how you can look at the payback and profit and ROI of leveraging various influencer strategies. So the 5 types of influencers, and this is pretty common, honestly, across channels. This is kind of the contextualized around Instagram, but frankly, it works for YouTube, it works for TikTok, it works for a lot of other platforms, even though the numbers might be slightly off. But generally speaking, if somebody's less than 10,000 followers, we would put them in the nano influencer category, which has become a burgeoning and really popular strategy that we'll get into in this video and others on how we leverage that audience. The next is micro influencers, which is basically 10 to 50,000. Macro is that 500,000 plus, so you're getting into bigger dogs there, obviously substantially more expensive and difficult to tap into. And then you've got some big ones, right? The mega influencers with $1 million plus, and then your celebrity influencers, which obviously command significant money. This is where your big brands are targeting these folks, and it's incredibly expensive. But those are the 5 types. For us, we're really looking at the triangle of influence, right? We want to find folks that have the right size audience, but more importantly than the right size, we want to have them closely aligned with our customer archetype. So the bigger you get, like if you're going celebrity style, the broader their audience is. It's not necessarily specific to golfers in our case, right? If you're targeting Logan Paul, Yeah, sure, there's some golfers that follow him, but is it a wise use of our money to pay Logan Paul a substantial amount of money? Probably not. As you get smaller down into that micro, that 10 to 50,000 or the sub 10,000 in the nano level, you're much more likely to have a targeted audience that you can isolate to a particular archetype. And that's where we're certainly going to focus. So we're going to go nano and micro with all of these strategies. And these micro and nano influencers are basically somebody with a smaller targeted and active following. They're perfect for us as startups or Amazon sellers because they're affordable, right? Typically, you can get away with giving free product or free product and a small fee. Their audiences are also typically very engaged around a common theme or industry because they're smaller, and they can still improve impressive results because they typically carry a significant amount of trust, and all those benefits that an influencer has, they have it in spades, albeit at a smaller scale from an audience standpoint. So this is just a look at some engagement rates, fewer than 1,000 followers, which is super nano. You typically get like 15% engagement. That nano influence, you get 7%. You get into the micro, it's around 3%. But as you get a bigger audience, the less people are going to like, comment, and feel engaged with the influencer. So despite the fact that we've got smaller audience sizes on the nano and micro scale, you typically get much more engaged, isolated audiences as well. So how we work with them in terms of pros and cons, typically it's going to be working for free product or free product and a small fee. We rarely spend more than $200 between product and fee for the influencers that we target and work with across channels. They're typically a lot cheaper than your larger scale influencers because they just don't have as many sponsorship opportunities. It's not their full-time job. And they don't have agents or a really sophisticated know-how of how these contract structures typically work. There's typically better engagement as well, again, because of those factors that we just talked about. And there's lower risk. And what I mean by lower risk is that because it's a lower investment, even if things don't work out great, it's really not a whole lot of sunk costs. So there's less financial risk versus if you're paying somebody $5,000. If that doesn't hit and you don't get your payback, it can actually hurt you from a marketing budget standpoint. The cons are that it can, at scale, be difficult to get all the completion rates on sending out product. They're harder to scale, so it's a decent amount of work to get even a handful of them in, and then it can be time consuming. But we're going to get into in future modules how to track this, how to do it at a scalable level, and how to do it at a recurring level to avoid some of that. The other thing that I would just say, which is massive across channels and something that we're going to hone in on, I actually learned this from Tim Jordan, which was a really good kind of riff off of a strategy on influencers that we're now starting to use a lot, which is Amazon affiliates and influencers use a specific link, which is an amzn.to link, which is basically a link shortener that Amazon uses with its affiliates. So if you're signed up as an Amazon associate affiliate and you go to create a link that you want to get a commission on, you're going to use a link that kind of has this nomenclature with it. And then if somebody actually purchases from that link, so let's say that you do a post on Instagram or your YouTube channel, somebody clicks on your amzn.to link for the product that you're talking about. If they purchase it, they're going to get typically about a 3 to 5% commission, which has been substantially lowered from last year, which is was cut in about half in some cases. But one thing that we've noticed is that sales, traffic, all those things that feed the Amazon algorithm that we've talked about before, any of those activities that take place and originate from a customer that came from one of these affiliate links creates an insane amount of rank benefit for your listing. So not only do you get the benefits of external traffic, a trusted audience, you're building your brand, you're getting content, all this stuff. If they use these links, you're going to get a tremendous amount of benefit in terms of organic rank for your listing. So we're going to actually use this link approach to help identify potential influencers across channels and make sure that we can really tap into that link shortening ability that the affiliates have to send additional algorithmic benefit to our Amazon products. So this is the general structure for influencer strategy, really across channels and approaches. So first of all, we're going to search for archetypal channels or influencers that are highly aligned with our customer archetype. So we're going to use that link shortening kind of method. In addition to the search terms and types of accounts and channels that align with our customer archetype, and we're going to basically find those channels and identify them as potential targets. And we're going to get into this across different strategies here in future videos. We're then going to do scaled recurring outreach. So typically we like to do 5 to 10 per channel per working day. And we have a tracker that helps us do this at scale so that we've got an ongoing drip feed approach to consistently going out and getting influencers. This isn't something we just do for launches. It's not something we just do for promotions. We're always actively across channels that make sense for our brands, trying to cultivate influencers because there's a snowball effect. And the 5 to 10 doesn't sound like a whole lot, but when you do 5 to 10 for every 5 working days of a week and you scale that out into a month, you get 100 a month. And then after a year, you've got 1,200, etc. And then over time, it's not inconceivable to have 50, 100, 250 influencers in your fleet that, again, you can weaponize and mobilize whenever you've got an eventful thing that you want to kind of deploy, whether you want content, whether you want to launch, or whether you just want to kind of get additional traffic to your brand to spike rank. Once we do that scaled outreach, we then have a negotiation strategy that we kind of piece together for the contract. And then there's a whole logistical component to getting that locked if you want to use a contract, aligning on costs, and just figuring out what the campaign strategy is, as well as actually fulfilling that product. And going over to one of our Amazon accounts really quickly, I just wanted to call out as well that if we're fulfilling the product to an influencer that exists in a country where we're already actively selling on Amazon, how we send them the product after we've kind of negotiated terms is going to actually be through Amazon itself. For international accounts, you've got to have a strategy to ship them from your warehouse or ship them internationally. But if it's an influencer that resides in a market that you're actually selling, the cool thing is we can kind of fulfill this from an operational standpoint through our Amazon account. So let's say that we found an Instagram influencer, we've come to a deal, we need to send them product because they're going to be doing a story in a couple weeks on the particular product. We could basically come in here, we could click on one of the products from inventory, manage inventory, and then go to action on selected. And then you basically just go to create fulfillment order. And then all we basically need to do here is to fill in the customer's information and to actually send them the product. So again, this is something that you can have as part of your influencer strategy and operational approach to basically do it all in-house, have somebody in your team not only reach out to, structure negotiations with, and get contracts and stuff with, but also follow up with logistics, tracking, and all that stuff all in one system. Again, we'll get into this in the tracker across the different channels, but just wanted to call this out really quickly that you can actually fulfill all of these influencer freebies, so to speak, through your actual Amazon account if they're in the same market where you sell.